Okay, hello everybody. For our last section before the test, which is Tuesday, next Tuesday, the 16th, we are solving. We haven't seen that word in a while. To solve means to get the unknown variable by itself, to figure out what that variable is. Most of the time it's x, but it could be any letter. And we have this symbol, which we haven't seen in a while, the equal sign, which means we have an equation, which means I can do whatever I want as long as I do it to the left side and the right side. I will still have a balanced equation. That's new this chapter, because before we didn't have an equal. We didn't know what this, we just had this. And so this is just an expression, and I can't change the value of this. I can't, because then it would be wrong. So I could only really add 0, which I never did, or you could multiply by 1, which we did a lot. In this case, you would probably have to add these two fractions. So you would multiply this by 1 and a special looking one, x minus 9 over x minus 9. And then you could combine the two fractions and then you would be done. But it's important to realize, and not everybody does, that this is very different. We are solving, which means we have an equation, two things equal each other, and you get to do whatever you want. You just got to do it to both sides. And you have to do things so that the last thing you write is x equals some number, and then you're done. So how do we do this? Well, this is what I want you to be thinking. The fraction complicates everything. And there's only one fraction here, it's this. And why is that even a fraction? The only thing that makes that a fraction is the fact that you're dividing by x minus 9. So it makes all the sense in the world to undo that. And the only way to undo division is multiplication. So the first thing I'm going to do is multiply both sides by the thing I'm dividing, by x minus 9. And again, that's not 1. I'm not multiplying by 1, but I don't need to multiply by 1 because I do it once on the right, once on the left, and everything's fine. It's still equal. It's still balanced. All right, what does that look like when you multiply both sides by x minus 9? Well, on the right, you get 2x minus 18 because you're mixing multiplication with subtraction or addition, and that means distribution. Same thing over here. You are mixing multiplication with addition. So you have to distribute x minus 9 times x minus 9 times that. Well, x minus 9 times x is x squared minus 9x. Just let that sink in. When I multiply these two things, I get this. I get x squared minus 9x. Then, when I multiply x squared times this big fraction, realize what's happening. Think about 2x. 2x is being divided by x minus 9, and then it's also being multiplied by x minus 9. Well, dividing by x minus 9 and multiplying by x minus 9 completely cancel each other out. So all that's left is just 2x. That's the main idea of today, a big idea. If I multiply x minus 9 times this, the two x minus 9s divide out. Because in one case, you're dividing by x minus 9, and in another case, you're multiplying. Well, those two things are inverses of each other. They undo each other. And so they literally just cancel out. They divide out. And now you've got a problem that could have been on a test last semester. You've got a quadratic that you have to solve for. So the key is to set it equal to 0. And I've got like terms, which I'll combine, and then I will subtract 2x on both sides, keep the balance. I'll add 18 on both sides, keep the balance. And I get, let's see, x squared minus 9x plus 18 equals 0. This, I could do quadratic formula, but factoring is almost always faster if you can recognize that it factors. But quadratic formula will always work. But this does factor into x minus 6 times x minus 3. So x minus 6 could equal 0, which means x is 6. X minus 3 could equal 0, which means x is 3. And remember what I said? You're not done until you say x equals a number. Well, there you go. You got two numbers, x equals 6 and x equals 3. It's also, there are two answers. These are the answers, but it's worth noting that you have to think about the original equation too. The original was you were dividing by x minus 9, and we all know that we can't divide by 0. So from the very, very beginning, I knew that there's no way x could equal 9. Because if x equals 9, then this suddenly becomes 0 and you're dividing by 0. That's a big problem. Can't divide by 0. But luckily, x doesn't equal 9, x equals 6, and x equals 3. Two solutions. One more problem. Similar problem. You got a fraction, so let's get rid of it. The only reason that that thing is a fraction is because you're dividing by x minus 7. So let's undo that and multiply by x minus 7. And let's see, on the right-hand side, I have x squared minus 7x. On the left-hand side, 3x minus 21, because x times 3, negative 7 times 3, that gives me 3x minus 21. But then when you multiply the second item, the x minus 7's cancel out. Think about the number 3. 3 divided by x minus 7 times x minus 7, that just completely cancels out. Here's exactly what's going on, but we hardly ever write this because it's just, well, maybe it's worth writing it down. This is what that second part would become after you multiply by x minus 7, but the x minus 7's cancel out. And so you're just left with 3. So the x minus 7's cancel out and you're left with 3, but guys, it is minus 3. Got to remember about those signs. And now we have the same situation. We've got a quadratic, so we're going to set it equal to 0 and solve. First of all, combine like terms. Then set it equal to 0. Let's see, I could subtract 3x on both sides. I can add 24 on both sides. Oh, I should have mentioned this earlier. Back to the original equation right here, you're dividing by one thing. You're dividing by x minus 7. So x better not be 7, right? X cannot be 7. Because if x were 7, you would be dividing by 0. And that's impossible. So I know before I even touch pencil to paper that there's no way x could be 7. I have to keep that in mind. So this becomes 0. This is x squared minus 10x plus 24. I could do quadratic formula, that will always work, but this one factors, and factoring is faster and easier. Two numbers that multiply to 24 and add to negative 10 are negative 6 and negative 4. So that means x minus 6 could be 0, which means x is 6, not 7. Whew. Or x minus 4 could equal 0, which means x equals 4. Two answers again. You're not always going to have two answers. Sometimes you'll have one answer. Sometimes you will have no answers.